While the Detroit Zoo's entrance doesn't exactly grab your attention, it's definitely one of the zoos that I've been to that has some of the more interesting animal species, including one of my favorites, which we'll see later on in this video. Speaking of interesting animal species, tell me what this is. I know, and you'll know by the end of this video, but if you can give a guess, don't Google, then go ahead and try and put that in the comments. Hey guys, I'm Gray Hammer. I do a lot of Planet Zoo content and zoo content in general. We're going to be touring the Detroit Zoo through pictures I took there. I don't take videos because I think that's a little bit more disruptive. I want to enjoy the zoo with my family and friends, and I think pictures are an easy way to do that. So, if you do enjoy this type of content, go ahead and please leave a like. Go ahead and watch my Birmingham Zoo video after this. And if you like zoo content in general, you might also enjoy my Planet Zoo content. So go watch some of those videos. Go ahead and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this in the future. We will be going to some very interesting zoos in the next year, and hopefully I will have some good tours of that. Without any further ado, let me tell you what my biggest problem is with this map, and that's this. This is just a little frustrating. If you saw my zoo tour of the Birmingham Zoo, you know I like to go in loops. That you snake along here, and then you turn right here, and you'd almost miss the great apes of Harambe, and so you gotta turn into here to see everything, then you come back this way, and then you come here and you have to turn around, which is a little frustrating. Also, I'm sorry for the low res image. This is exactly from their website, but. And then you could either go this way or this way, so we went this way. And then we went through here. And then we were like, oh shoot. Oh shoot. Come back down. And then. Oh, there's the amphibians, and then you're out. So, I think zoo design wise, obviously, every zoo can't be designed perfectly. Sometimes it just takes some time for you to get. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but as it expands, sometimes the zoo just has to go a certain way. But that would be my biggest issue, is just zoo design wise, it's kind of difficult to maneuver in the zoo itself. We definitely had to backtrack quite a few times. But speaking of our tour of the zoo, we are going to be exploring this section first, and I will say the aviary and the amphibians we will see at the very end, but we'll go over that in just a bit. Let's first start our tour out at the Polk Penguin Conservation Center. So the first building we come up to is the Polk Penguin Conservation Exhibit, and this was most certainly one of the most modern of the zoo's buildings, though all the buildings themselves are pretty modern looking, as opposed to the Birmingham Zoo, where the buildings are actually kind of what holds back the zoo a little bit in modernity. This is where the zoo gets most of its modernity, is these buildings. And you can see they have a really cool map here, just kind of showing different areas of the world and their relation to Antarctica. But I don't know that many people, besides little kids, who need to know where Antarctica is. But the main attraction, of course, is the penguins, and you get a lot of them. 5 species to be exact, which is way more than your standard if you're going for an Antarctica section. King penguins and gentoos. We've got the rockhopper penguin, the macaroni penguin, the chinstrap, the gentoo, and of course these king penguins, which can stand up to 3 feet tall. Pretty awesome birds. I believe in the picture we see the macaroni, I think this is a rockhopper, and then of course we've got the king, and we'll see the chinstrap later. I don't think I have a really good picture of the gentoo. So really cool modern-esque habitat. I will say that there's a lot going up at the top that can be a little distracting, but it's a really cool exhibit. Cooled water, ice machine, of course all this faux rock. It's a Planet Zoo dream to be able to see all this. And one of the things that's a Planet Zoo nightmare is an underwater viewing tunnel. While technically possible in Planet Zoo, it is not a fun thing. So, you can actually go under the water with the penguins, and here we have one of, this is a, I think this is a rockhopper, not a gentoo. It's kind of hard to see because of the motion blur, but we do have two chin straps right here. And they do actually have a hologram. You can kind of see the edge of it right there. That's their holographic sign. It's pretty amazing. Really cool. Haven't seen anything like that in the zoos. And was a very interesting exhibit. But we're going to move right along to the North American river otter habitat, which unfortunately was a no-show. But it's a really cool exhibit, outdoor exhibit, which is nice. I see a lot of North American river otters mainly being indoors, from what I've seen. You can go and see the underwater viewing pictures, but somehow I didn't get a picture of it. I thought I did. But the one concern here is I would be worried that they could fall into the moat and not get out. There might be a shallower moat on the back wall, though. So I'm not 100% sure of that. This is the beaver habitat, and yeah, some serious glare on the glass here, but this is the outdoor section. They have like a land river section right here, and then we have some other pictures of them as well. They do have a TV screen to show you when they're sleeping, which they were because it was during the day. It was in the morning, so I thought that maybe we would be able to get some of the more crepuscular species to be active in the morning, but no luck on that front. They do have a nice water section here, and you're going to see a lot of these kind of concrete rocks. I will say the faux rocks at the Detroit Zoo are not necessarily the most impressive in terms of quality, but they do the job and kind of make your viewpoints a lot better in some of these areas. But that's the North American beaver. We're then going to go to the reptile house, which is one of the zoo's buildings that's probably a little bit older than some of the others. I'm not 100% sure, but really great species selection here. This, I believe, is the Mojave Desert rattlesnake. I can't recall exactly, but lots of rattlesnakes in this reptile house, including the Masaga rattlesnake here in the center, the African rock python on the left, and then the Chinese alligator on the right, which is really cool, as they are an endangered species. You can see that these habitats are pretty well planted, which is pretty cool. Nice to see that in a reptile habitat. And yeah, they have tons of reptiles in here. They're just, unfortunately, there was a lot of people, so I didn't get too many great pictures of all of them because I couldn't just sit down and search for every single species that was hiding. But here we have, on the left, you can see the eastern box turtle there. I love my box turtles, they're great. Then we've got the don't think I've seen them in zoos, but they are pretty common in the pet trade. The fly river turtle, native to the Fly River in Papua New Guinea. They're a really cool species of freshwater turtle, even though they do look like a sea turtle. And then we've got the Fijian banded iguana. My favorite iguana species, native to Fiji, which is very unusual for iguanas as they are more of a Caribbean species. They're also pretty chill compared to the rest of the iguanas. Next, we've got a multi-species exhibit with the Gila monster and the chuckwalla, which is pretty cool. Gila monsters are mainly egg eaters, so even though they are somewhat of a predator, I don't think that they would really go after a chuckwalla. And therefore they are somewhat frequently kept together. And then we've got the Mata Mata turtle on the right, known for camouflaging as leaves. Unfortunately, not a lot of leaf litter, and so we were able to see them quite clearly. It could be a cool interspecies enrichment. I believe that they share that habitat with the Arau river turtle or yellow spotted river turtle. I don't remember exactly. But just rounding it out, I believe this is a radiated tortoise here. It might be the Egyptian tortoise, but I'm pretty sure it's the radiated from Madagascar. They shared a habitat with the Egyptian tortoise, which was cool but a little weird. Then we've got the Cuvier's dwarf caiman here, which was cool. They had the largest habitat for the dwarf caiman. And then we've got a black tree monitor, and I always love monitor lizards, but didn't get a great picture because I think it was close to feeding time because he was hanging out around the back. We are now entering the Forest of Asia, which starts off with vultures, then goes into camels. You can go through the dragon forest for an additional price for some dragon species that they're showing off with animatronics, but we weren't going to do that. And then red panda and the Siberian tiger, along with the some two primate species that aren't from Asia, but whatever. This is the cinereous vulture and lappet-faced vulture habitat. Got this kind of log wall background and plenty of night herons going because it was feeding time. So the night herons were stealing the food from the vultures. We also had some native turkey vultures flying around as well. So it was kind of interesting to see that. But they have a pretty wide habitat. I don't remember if I show it. I don't. But they are directly adjacent to the backtrained camels, which is also share a habitat with the Thorold's deer, who did not show their face today. But a very large habitat, and I will say most of the Detroit Zoo's habitats are quite sizable for the species that they house, which is great. We love to have animals in the right space for them. It does make it a little bit more difficult to see them sometimes, but I'll deal with that. We then get to the red panda habitat, which is quite spacious for red pandas, I will say, and quite amazing. You've got a rope bridge that goes over it that you can walk across. As there's two sides of the habitat, you can kind of see the left side on the left-hand side of the screen, and the right side with the right-hand side of the screen. Lots of trees that they're able to climb in, and you can see them in the tree right here. So, was really cool to be able to see the red pandas in more of a naturalist setting because my local zoo has them indoors. And then we've got our Siberian tiger with another large enclosure. You can see here from our glass viewing area where the tiger was sleeping in the shade, but got a big moat on the left-hand side, which I'm kind of basing for Zoo Burn. If you've been watching my live streams, then you know I've been working on my Bengal tiger habitat, but got a forested area and some grasslands area for that tiger. And then to finish out for Asia, we've got the Lesotho leaf monkey, I think, and the Allen swamp monkey. I believe this is I think it's the leaf-nosed monkey, maybe. Primates are not my specialty, but you've got this nice multi-species exhibit that's pretty large, lots of viewing areas. Maybe you can say that this is part of the Great Apes of Harambe, but I think that it's a little bit more part of the Asian forest. I think they're advertised as being part of the Asian forest, even though these are both African species of primates. Exiting the Asian forest, we've got the Great Apes of Harambe, which is never my favorite section in a zoo, is the ape section, but this was definitely changing my mind a little bit on that. For one, I don't know that I've actually ever seen chimps in a zoo. I think I've seen bonobos, but I don't think I've seen actual proper chimps, and they were pretty fun to watch. And the habitats that they have for these are pretty impressive. I think the gorillas slightly less so, but the chimpanzees have quite a large area. So on for the gorilla, you've got these multiple viewing areas of this kind of island, though there's no actual water in the moat. But you've got some climbing structures, which is good for gorillas, and here you can see one of the females picking some flowers. And then this is the indoor area for the gorilla, which is pretty nice. I think they did a really good job with the indoor section for both of these primates. Quite spacious, lots of climbing areas. So would be great to see them using this a little bit more, but they were all outside, which is also good because, you know, we like to see the primates outdoors. Here you can see that the primates, the gorillas, were able to use their rock structures to climb on quite well. And yeah, this was, I believe this was the mother, and she had her baby there. But I'm not 100% sure because we never got to look at the baby. From what I understand, though, that. So, got really close to the viewing area was cool to see her using the shade. And then we've got the chimps, which they did have this baby that we were able to get in full display. And then you've got these faux tree climbing frames. They look really fake, but you know, it works. Indoors, they have much the same as the gorillas, with a little pool that I guess they can drink out of, because from what I understand, chimpanzees and apes in general don't really love water, so they're not big swimming species. And that's going to bring us to the end of Great Apes of Harambe and straight into the Africa section of the zoo, which is, as you can kind of tell, one of the larger sections of the zoo, which kind of makes sense. You do get a few animals here that are not from Africa, but you know, the Detroit Zoo isn't necessarily known for keeping animals in the space where you think they should go. I guess. I don't know what I'm saying exactly. So, first off, we have sandhill cranes sharing an exhibit with the greater rhea. So you can see the rhea here, and then the sandhill cranes. They also had Indian peafowl. So you've got animals from 3 continents sharing the same habitat, which, you know, is kind of interesting for sure. And trust me, that theme is not going to be changed whatsoever when we get to this habitat, where you can find Chilean flamingos, greater flamingos, African spoonbills, and turkey vultures. So, 3 continents as well. Africa, technically 4 if you want to say that we can just throw greater flamingo into Asia as well. So, North America, South America, Asia, and Africa. But the habitats themselves aren't bad, and the animals seem to be doing fine, so I don't think too many people are going to be upset that the animals aren't exactly where they would never interact in the wild. This isn't the wild, the animals seem to be fine. It is always nice to see greater flamingos in contrast to some of the other species of flamingos, because you can kind of really tell greater flamingo, Chilean flamingo. But if it was American, it would be an even more striking difference, which is why I'm glad that Planet Zoo went with the American flamingo in the America's DLC. Moving on, we've got the lion habitat, which I think was pretty cool looking. Unfortunately, lions were sleeping, as lions do, so weren't able to see them out and about. We only saw the 2. There may have been more. But here we have the male and the female both sleeping up on their rock wall, which was pretty cool to see. Giving them some verticality is always nice. And then we've got the Japanese macaque, which I guess I can say, again, not a species from Africa, but a cool species nonetheless that I don't know that I've seen in a zoo before. I know they're not uncommon, I just can't remember seeing any. And then, yeah, so they have a nice rock structure. Pretty simple, but it looks nice. And lots of grass, which makes everything look significantly better. I mean, just like Planet Zoo, buffalo grass makes everything better. Indoors, you can go and see the mouse bird here. They're not necessarily the bird I would pick for a small aviary. They're not the most flashiest. They're kind of an afterthought when you're walking through. But then you've got the indoor section of the lemur habitat. Obviously, you can see red-ruffed lemur, but the only one indoors right now is the ring-tailed lemur. And so they're cool. Really do enjoy the lemurs. And the outdoor section was where everyone was hanging out, where you can see the red-ruffed lemurs, the ring-tailed lemurs, and I believe they also had the brown lemurs or it was the crowned lemurs. I'm not 100% sure what the other lemur species is. There's a lot of lemurs. But that was pretty cool. And then you can go indoors to see their white rhinoceros housing, which is pretty cool. I haven't been to a lot of zoos that have the backstage areas for their larger species. Um, I know it's somewhat popular in more European zoos, but I haven't seen it as much in American zoos. But then we also got to see the rhino outside, and you can kind of get the big habitat sweeping view here. And also, we had a groundhog that was wandering around in multiple of the enclosures. So, lots of groundhogs all around, but was definitely something cool there. This was the warthog habitat, and from what I was able to tell, they only had the one warthog in here. And it's a spacious enclosure for one warthog. I feel like it must have been something else, and they just had to throw something else in there. But here you can get some better pics of that warthog. Considering it's got anti-climb fencing, I assume this was for something like a wild dog, maybe. But I'm not 100% sure. I have not researched that. But warthogs were cool. Another species I don't frequently see in zoos, even though I'm sure they are somewhat common, just not the ones that I've been to. Never mind, Zoo Atlanta had them. I'm realizing just how bad my photography skills are because these pictures are blurry as crap. But here we have Grevy zebras that share the space with wildebeest. I don't have, a great picture of the wildebeest, but here's the Grevy zebra. You can tell because of the tight stripe pattern on the legs, and free roam Indian peafowl. You gotta have them. But here's another enclosure picture of the Grevy zebra habitat. And so there's the Grevy zebra. The wildebeest is there. I feel like Canva is making my pictures look blurrier because looking back on these, they didn't look this bad on my phone. But here you can see the back of that flamingo habitat, and we've got the ostrich, peafowl, and you can see the the common eland here. Then we've got an enclosure for the Eurasian stork, and I think it's the pink-billed pelican. I could be wrong there. Reticulated giraffe, and here's a more far-away picture of them. And then here's the aardvark habitat. Obviously, the aardvark was not seen because nocturnal species. It's kind of... I've never seen them in an outdoor enclosure, so that was something to see. And then the indoor for their giraffes, and you can see this is definitely their male giraffe here. Those darker rosettes kind of show that off. And then to end off the African section, we've got the sloth bear. Yeah, typical African animal, the sloth bear of India. He's or she is right here. Pretty cool looking enclosure. This is actually the enclosure, though, that I think is probably the worst that they have. I think it's the smallest. I think this and another enclosure we'll get to are probably the ones that are least suited for the animals they have in them. While they give them a climbing frame, I think it's just a little small for even just one bear, personally. But I could be completely off my rocker. And then, yeah, that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think about this habitat. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's a little lacking. So the next part, and I promise we won't be here long because there ain't much to see, is their Australian section. And they've got 3 species in their Australian section, so hold on, because not going to be here long. So first off, you've got the southern cassowary, which, of course, beautiful species. Always love cassowaries. This is the holding for the female and the picture of the female. Again, not much you can say except giant murder bird, even though they don't really kill people, but... Then we've got a walkthrough habitat with red kangaroos and Bennett's wallabies, and didn't realize just how difficult it was to tell the difference between a female red kangaroo and any other wallabies, because they're not that different in size from what I was able to tell. I think all of these in this picture are red kangaroos. You can show me in the comments which, if I'm wrong. Oh, that's all I showed. Okay, but this one might be a wallaby, maybe. I think the ears are a little bit pointier on the wallabies, but I could be wrong. But let's get to their North America sort of Michigan area, because this is, in my opinion, one of my favorite sections of the zoo, just because of it has my favorite animal. You're gonna get to see my favorite animal. This is the first time I ever got to see my favorite animal, so was really amazing to see. First off, my wife's favorite animal, and that's the wolf, or one of her favorites. So I've heard that the wolves at the Detroit Zoo don't like to be seen very often, or kind of rare to be seen. I could be wrong there, but from what I heard from other people's zoo tours, but not shy at all when it came to us. You can see they have a pretty wide expanse, but we were able to see this one right here. I believe they're both females. And yeah, wolves are always cool. The next habitat we got to see was this American bison habitat. They were all hiding in the background, which is unfortunate because they're such an impressive species. It would be really cool to see them milling about towards the front of their enclosure. But I have seen that at the Montgomery Zoo. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a tour of that zoo. It'll probably be a little less positive than my Birmingham and this zoo, even though they do have some good enclosures, and I think their bison enclosure is one of those. But then we've also got some bald eagles, which I believe they had signage up saying these were rescue eagles, so that's why they're not flying around. But yeah, bald eagles are always cool to see in the zoos, but they don't really do too much. They kind of just stand around. So, not too many pictures of that, but who wasn't standing around and who was very active, which I was very excited because, indeed, the wolverine is my favorite animal. And we got to see this. Technically, this is a European subspecies of the wolverine, but I don't care. It's a wolverine in a zoo, actively running around. I think I've got no more pictures, at least that were worth showing. I think there's a picture my wife took where it's just me looking at the wolverine smiling so happily. I just love these guys. They're so personable, so cool, and very fearsome, and I would not want to be in this enclosure. But then we go to the Arctic Ring of Life, which has two species, so not that much life. But, it is what it is. We've got here the polar bear habitat. We were able to get some pretty decent pictures of the polar bears because they were just chilling out in the 90-degree weather, even though they had a giant pool, which I did not get pictures of, apparently. I think I was just getting tired at this point. Because it's not in a loop, even though the Detroit Zoo is only like 20 acres larger than the Birmingham Zoo, it feels significantly larger when you're walking through it. But yeah, this habitat is, while having a lot of really cool rock work in the background, it's a little boring. It's very flat. And I think some more rocks that they could be able to climb and enrich themselves would be nice. You can kind of see more of a panoramic shot here, and I just realized how focused it is on the sky. I don't know why I included that one. But here we've got the sea otters, which the polar bears and the sea otters can see each other through the water section, which you have a viewing tunnel, which I got crappy pictures of, so it's not even worth showing there. We've also have the grizzly bear habitat, which is the other habitat I kind of have a little bit problems. Well, you can see that it's pretty sizable. for one or maybe two bears, three bears are kept here. And so I'm just a little bit less enthused about that. I think 1 to 2 bears would be good in here. 3 bears is pushing it, in my opinion, but they are rescued bears from what I understand, so gotta cut them a little bit of slack on that. Circling back, and you can see the section that I circled, is the amphibian house and the aviary. The amphibian house is where you're going to get a little bit of payoff for whether you guess the correct species at the start. But species shown here from left to right is the Lake Titicaca frog, the red-eyed tree frog, and the mossy frog, I think that's what it's called. Lake Titicaca frog is only found in one lake in Mexico, from what I understand. So, really cool species there. Red-eyed tree frog was really cool because I had my red-eyed tree frog socks on. So, that is what we call good timing. And then I just haven't really seen these mossy frogs outside of pictures. We then got the axolotl, which is a really cool species of salamander found in one underground lake in Mexico. Are you sensing a theme? And then I believe this is the smoky jungle frog. Really cool species of frog. And then we've got the golden mantella here from Madagascar. It's Africa's answer to the poison dart frog, but they're very small. We also saw a female wood duck out the window, which is cool because I don't think I've actually seen wood ducks. We've got this salamander species, which I don't recall what species it was, but it was in a little burrow that was against the glass, so that was cool. Here you can see a hellbender tail, a really cool species from the eastern United States that is endangered, from what I understand. So cool to see them in a habitat, and they're kind of a foreshadowing of what's to come. I don't remember what this left-hand species was called. I should have looked that up. Let me know in the comments if you know what species it is. It's not a dumpy tree frog, but they're a cool species for sure. Here we've got a Panamanian golden frog, which I believe has now been declared extinct in the wild, only kept in captive populations, and they breed them here at the Detroit Zoo. They, in fact, have a thing saying, look for tadpoles. I looked, I didn't see any. And then we've got a few poison dart frogs sharing a little home here. Poison dart frogs are always cool to see. Got a few more species to go through. And yes, the little blurry hand was the best picture I could get of the Japanese giant salamander. And really cool species. Only found in Japan. And you can see just how massive they are in this picture, which is my hand next to a scale model of one. Just for reference, I'm 6'1", 6'2", so I'm not a small dude. And this is a 5-foot long salamander, which is pretty epic. Then we've got this newt here. I don't remember the species again. I'm sorry. I should have probably gone through and made sure I knew every single species, but there's a lot in here. I do know this is the Kansani spray toad on the right. Very, very small toad found in one one waterfall in Africa. So kind of common theme there. And then we've got the aviary. Did I skip a picture? I did. We've got our macaw here, the blue and gold macaw here. Here's just a pretty good picture of just the indoor rainforest aviary. And we can see the scarlet ibis on the right. Gotta love a scarlet ibis. Then we've got the Nicobar pigeon, which is a beautiful pigeon species. We've got a few bowerbirds and just some hibiscus to kind of round off the Detroit Zoo. Overall, I'd say the Detroit Zoo is one of the best zoos I've come to see. It's probably not the best zoo that I've seen, that being the Cincinnati Zoo in my opinion. But I'd love to see your guys' opinions of this zoo so far. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you enjoyed this kind of content of zoo tours, go ahead and like the video, because it is a lot of work to get all these pictures together, talk about them. So I would appreciate the like on this video if you enjoyed it. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more zoo tours or more Planet Zoo content in general. So, guys, thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye now.